All right, we get started.
Welcome to tonight's training. We have Timothy Fowler and Derek Crapo running it. Combined, they have over 2,000 personal sales sold and installed. Actually, I don't know the number, but it's a lot. So take it away, guys.
That's actually probably pretty close. This will be a little intro. This will be my sixth summer coming up. My biggest summer was 188 with over half my accounts financed in Indianapolis. Will be an actual summer, and yeah, this has been good to me. So
this will be my seventh-ish, eighth summer. Depends how you count it. It'll be my eighth summer. My best summer was 211 in Louisville, and yeah, I'm still here. So alarms has been really good to me. So, but we're excited to do the training tonight. The training that we have is from the credit check to welcome call. So this is the part of the sale that just about every single deal, every house, it's about the exact same. And it's something you can memorize from A to Z. And you should, especially before coming out, because it's done the same on every door.
Yeah, one of the quotes that I like to think about when I think about closing, everything up until you tell the customer the price, which some people drop price on the doorstep. I think most of us do it a little bit later on in the house after our walkthrough. Everything up until you drop price is presenting, and everything after you drop price is closing. And so basically this entire training that we're doing is I usually qualify right after I drop price. So it's basically the entire portion of the sale where you're actually closing people. And a big thing to keep in mind, we're going to talk about soft closing a lot. And for everybody that's new, soft closing, it's kind of like when I go to Target with my wife and she's like, hey, I really like this shirt. I'm like, well, are you going to get it? And she's like, I don't know. I'm just going to put it in the cart and I'm going to think about it. And, I know if I say, hey, are you going to get it or not? Like, you need to decide right now. There's probably a higher chance that she'll just be like, oh, well, maybe not. I'll just put it back. But it makes its way in its cart. I'm thinking about it. It kind of gets forgotten for a second. And then you get up to the cash register and you're like, oh, well, it's in the cart. We're here. I guess we're getting it. And so, soft closing is really the art of kind of putting the alarm in the basket and bringing it all the way there and getting them signed up without really sitting there and asking for a hard yes, or like expecting the customer to say, okay, I'm ready to buy, I'm ready to get this.
Yeah, so it basically just takes the friction out of them like making an actual decision, because most people, they're not really, the thing they're scared of the most is actually being the one to say yes or no. And so soft closing them through the whole process, it just makes it easy to do it, which is, like I said, just taking out all the friction. So but the difference between hard closing and soft closing, either answer is good. So would you rather have a doorbell camera or the camera over the driveway? It doesn't really matter what they say. Either answer helps you, and either answer you can go off of and is essentially a yes. A hard close is, obviously you want to avoid hard closes, but that's like, so how's this sound? So what are you thinking? Does that sound good? Like, it's kind of yes or no questions, and you want to avoid those like the plague, just because that's forcing them to make a decision. So soft closing is super important, and I think we'll ask one or two soft closing questions early on in the process, like the doorbell outdoor camera, but a lot of the soft closing questions come after qualifying, because you are collecting a lot of information. So like, if you don't pick up the phone, who's the next person you want us to call? And they're just thinking of they're thinking of either answer is good for you. So
yeah, and it really starts with the qualification, which is where we're going to start. And like TJ said, especially for all the rookies, taking notes is probably a good idea, because a lot of this is done the exact same on every single sale. But to preface, the qualification is a soft credit check. Usually I'll tell the customers when I get the not the signature, but their initial, that, hey, this is a soft check, which we'll explain here in a second. But it doesn't show us numbers, it shows us letters. Basically, A, B, and D are all good to go. You can sign them up at full commission. E is a C credit deduction, is what they call it. But an E credit, you have to charge a $199, and there's also a $100 deduction in commission. And then if you see bulk, it basically usually I just tell the customer like, hey, it's $200 to get started and $75 a month. Do you want it or not? Because I'm hoping they tell me no. Because bulks you only make banked points, and you get 5 that count towards pay jumps, and so you don't make very much money on them because their credit is quite a bit worse. And then G and F all fail. So when you run a qualification, it'll give you one of those letters, and you can see if the customer passes or not, and it doesn't impact their credit whatsoever. But so usually in my sales process and my cycle, I've gotten in the house, I've gone through all the equipment, I've obviously found their hot buttons, I've told them the price, and then to introduce the qualification, I use a pullback. And so I'll say, but really quickly, before I make any false promises, just where we are covering all the upfront costs or where we are paying for all the equipment, ADT requires that I qualify the address. It verifies that you live here, you're the homeowner. And for example, obviously not because this is a new house, but maybe, you didn't have ADT 10 years ago at this location and never ever paid it even once, because then they wouldn't be too excited with sponsoring or with helping out round two. And then right from there, if I've asked their name already, I'll say, hey, Patrick, is that your first name or is that your middle name? Because a lot of people, it's actually surprising, they'll go by their middle name and then the credit check won't go through. It'll say a no hit. Or I'll say, hey, I'm so sorry. I mean, ask, what was your name? Oh, Patrick. Perfect. And then, Patrick, what was your last name? Okay, Murphy.
Yeah, and how I preface the qualification, you want to build a little bit of curiosity. One thing someone said, I think it was Greg a couple trainings ago, was like, yeah, some of these homes have come back declined. Like, we don't do this for everybody. I actually used that on this last blitz, and I really liked it. Like, hey, they are picky about what home we invest in. Like I said, just making sure you live here, you're the homeowner. I picked a good house. Like I said, you're on the corner, so it should come back okay. But they are a little bit picky with that. So, but as you're gathering the qualification info, in fact, I'm going to share my screen here really quick and just pull it up so that way we're all staring at the same thing. But after you get their name, you guys all see my screen?
Yep.
Okay. So after you get their name, first name, last name, I always do phone number. And the money making question is, when the alarm goes off, who's better at answering the phone? Would you rather us call you, or do you think your wife picks up the phone more? And how you get that, you should know the area code. So if it's whatever area code, I'll go, who's better answering the phone? You? Okay. And what was your phone number? 337. And you just look down and they just give you the rest of it. If you're like, what's your phone number? They're like, well, what do you need that for? Some people will be a little reluctant, but that's part of the soft closing questions. And as you paint a picture of what you need the information for, it makes sense. So every piece of information that you get, you should preface it with why that's important, and ideally painting a picture of that info, of what it's used for. So yeah, we'll just do an example. So okay, your first name, you go by Jim, right? And that's your first name, right?
Yep.
And last name, what was your last name?
Bo.
Bo, perfect. When the alarm goes off, we're going to call you first. Between you and your wife, who do you think would pick up the phone first? Who's better?
Definitely me.
Okay. So we'll call you first. And real quick, your phone number, that's 337?
Yeah, 217-1663.
Okay. And then just making sure it's you, not some other Jim, your cousin, Junior, just making sure it's you. What's your birthday?
January 23rd, 97.
Perfect. And then, like I said, the address, and I'll never ask them, like, I'll confirm what their address is, but I'm never going to ask them, like, hey, what's your address? What's your zip code? How do you spell the name of the city? So I always go off the little icon in your maps, and I always click it, and I always click plus. It automatically pulls up their address. If you have to drop a PIN, but you shouldn't be asking them for the zip code or the spelling or anything like that, because it kind of tells them like, oh, hey, like, they're new, or they're not from here. Why don't you
Or
know
they're not familiar with the area.
like, it just kind of raises questions. I always love it when it's like, I'll have it preloaded, and it's like a really funny spelling for the street name. And I'm like, oh yeah, and the spelling was, and I'll like pretend like I already know what it is. I'm spelling it out. In reality, it's already on there. But it just kind of a subtle like, hey, I know where I am. I know your house. This is 1306, right? So, but 1306, and then we'll just say, let's have that all typed out. So, and then where I go to next, I don't get, and everyone does this a little bit differently. We do have to get the last four of their social, and then we need their signature for the credit check. I do it a little bit differently. I'll skip the signature and I'll skip the social. And I'll ask a couple more soft closing questions first. And the reason why, for me specifically, I just feel like I can gauge a better feel of like, hey, are they going to do this or not? Instead of asking those questions earlier. But I'll always ask, hey, and like I said, if you don't pick up the phone first, say someone broke in your house and you don't answer, we're going to send the cops. Who's the next best person you want us to call? I assume that'd be your spouse. And then what was your name? And I'll jot down name, phone number. And then from there, I'll go straight to emergency contact number 3. Now, you don't have to, but if neither of you guys pick up the phone and there was a break-in, there was a fire, or somebody fell, you don't have to, but is there anybody else you'd want us to call? And one of two answers. I'll be like, oh, yeah, put my sister down there. And then they're going to go get their phone and they're going to start giving you information. That's kind of when I know, like, hey, I'm 95% getting this deal, because they're like, oh, yeah, let me go get my, contact info for another person. So it just kind of tells you, like, hey, we're doing this because I'm volunteering. What is going on? Sorry. I'm voluntarily giving you information. So, but yeah, from emergency contact 3, I go into verbal password. And again, you're painting a picture. Hey, if there was a break-in, whether you're here or not, we just want to make sure we're talking with you. Okay. Heaven forbid something did happen. We just want to make sure it's you. It's the hardest part about the whole thing. Don't worry, it's not that bad. But we just want you to come up with one word. Okay. No numbers, not too crazy long. What's a good word that you think you'd remember? And they're going to sit there and go, oh, I don't know. Like, it could be your favorite, your pet's name, could be your favorite kid. I'm just kidding. That's a bad joke. And they always laugh. Or you could do pineapples, whatever. And they're going to give you a word. And then I jump straight into email, where I'll say, hey, the app on your phone, and I should have shown you this earlier, but I will show you on my phone, and I kind of show them the app and just kind of show them how easy it is to use, turning it off and on. And I'll just show them the app for the camera and for the alarm. But the username for the app that goes on your phone, it's your email. What's good email for you? And then you look down, type in their email. From there, I swipe back over, and then I'll say, and if just to give you access to your account, if you ever have to call up and change anything with your account, we just want to make sure it's actually you're not someone else calling up and changing stuff on your account. What's last for your social? And you just look down, type it in. And I think the key to getting the information like that is just being confident, painting the picture before, being confident, and just looking down at your iPad. I think only one person gave me pushback on the last 4. And all I said was, yeah, it's not the whole thing. It's just the last 4. And they're like, oh, whatever, 6395. Right. So, and then this is where I tell them about the credit check. So I'll tap on here for them to sign. I'll be like, yeah. And like I said, just because we are investing a ton of money in your home, ADT is a little picky about who we do this for. They just want to make sure that you're the homeowner here. And then it is a soft utility credit check. So it doesn't ding your score at all. It just does it off the address. So you could go buy a car or house or a really nice lawnmower tonight. It doesn't matter. They wouldn't even be able to see it, but this just needs your signature. And then boom, I hand them my iPad and they'll initial in there. So, but that's kind of how I get the first and second page. I kind of loop it back around and get the social and signature last.
Hey, can you say
do it.
your social line one more time? I just want to hear it once.
Yeah, so I'll say, just to give you access to your account, if you ever have to call up and change anything, they just want to make sure it's actually you that they're talking with. What's last for your social?
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yep.
I think that, and the nice thing is, you can find a way that works for you. I will do that if I'm feel like I'm getting pushback or don't have great buying temperature from the customer. But if everything seems like it's going good, and I usually at this point have a pretty good idea of how interested they are. And if it seems like, everything's good to go for the most part, I'll get all the information, the name, I'll confirm the address, get the phone number. When I ask for their birthday, I say there's lots of gyms. What's your birthday? And then I'll just get the social and the signature right then and there before I fill out the additional information page, unless there seems like a tricky customer. And the way I get the social is I usually just say it like I used to get the birthday. I'll say, yeah. And, there's a lot of gyms out there, just to make sure we have the right one. What's the last four of your social? And the most important part is the body language, looking down at your iPad and waiting versus just sitting there and looking at them. When I was brand new, my brother-in-law came out and for the summer, and we didn't used to have to get any information about their social for the credit check, but he didn't know that because you still had the option if it was like a no hit, and he thought you had to get the full social for everybody. So his first month, he was getting the entire social from everybody, and he was still a rookie that didn't super know what he was doing. But because he didn't make it a big deal, the customer didn't either. And so if you say, yeah, the only thing we need just to confirm is the last four of your social, people are going to be a lot more apprehensive because they can feel your apprehension. But if you just are confident, like TJ said, and yeah, just to make sure it's the right gym, there's lots of them out there. What's the last four of your social, sir? Look down, and usually they give it to you. And then kind of the same when I get the signature, I just say, yep. And all this does, it's a super soft utility credit check, just like when you get internet. If you went and bought a house, car, really nice lawnmower, or a tractor tonight, I'll just kind of pick something different every day, kind of fun. It wouldn't even show up. They just want to make sure you know that I'm not doing it for you. So they just ask not a signature, they just ask that you initial, and then hand them my iPad. And most people, it's not a problem. They're usually pretty happy to do so. And if they're not, then you can go ahead and fill out the additional information page and come back to it if you need to.
Yeah, I take it back. There was one scenario where one guy was like, "Don't ask me that question about the social." He's like, "Don't ask me that. I don't give that out." And I was like, "Okay, let me see if I can find you without it." And obviously, it won't. Um, and basically, you just don't make it a big deal. You just move on, get emergency contacts, continue the sale. I actually got all the way up into the point where it was like, "Hey, schedule the tech. Okay, he's gonna come. Oh, it couldn't find you. It just needs the last four." And then it was to the point where it's like, "Okay, I'm doing this. Whatever. Here's my social." But that I've only had that happen once, and it's not a big deal at all if you don't make it a big deal. So, um, but after additional info, after you qualify them, I've already, at this point in the process, I've already shown them this page as a summary of, hey, this is what you're getting. This is how much it costs. I've already dropped price at this point. But I'll do a summary or a recap. And I feel like at this point in time, after getting all that information, before scheduling the tech, you just kind of want to make sure everyone's on the same page. And so for me, the summary of, hey, just going over it one more time, we're doing the panel on the wall. And again, you're painting a picture. We're doing the panel on the wall. And like I said, we're doing that nicer 7-inch one. And then we're doing all of your doors. So front door, back door, door into the garage. And I'm showing them this as I'm punching it in. Earlier in my process, as I'm punching in and showing them, I'll say things like, yeah, the cool thing about ADT is it's cellular. The problem with most alarms is they go through your Wi-Fi, like Ring or Simply Safe, and then crack it, it's the telephone pole or your hurricane or power's out, and you don't have an alarm that works anymore. So I'm punching stuff in, building value, smoke detector, doorbell camera, ADT sign. I always click on it and say, yeah, in my opinion, this is the most important part. Obviously, it brings a lot of business our way, but it's also a deterrent. Okay, burglars are dumb, but they're also lazy. When they see you have ADT and your neighbors don't, what do you think they do? They skip your house. Okay, so it's a huge deterrent. And then, like I said, by this point, I've already dropped price. So after I get additional info, I'll come back here and recap. So I'll say, like I said earlier, all your equipment, and if you're not financing, all your equipment, your cost is all zero. Like I said, it's the $75, keeping it connected every month. That stays the same. And then the only bill that's ever different is the first one, which is just that $99 to activate the alarm. So you're recapping everything, because you'll have people that like they're paying attention, but they're not really 100% paying attention. Like I'll have people where I'll drop price, and 5 minutes later they're like, okay, well, how much is this? And I'm like, I already told you. But I think a recap right before scheduling the tech, it tells you that when you schedule the tech, if they say no, it's not because they didn't understand what they were getting. It's because they're either not sure about moving forward, or the timing of the install, etc. So I just feel like it gets the playing field level. Hey, this is what we're doing, this is what we're getting, and then I'll transition to scheduling the tech.
The other reason that we do the summary right before we schedule the technician is when you schedule the tech, at least for me, that's the hardest close that, you know, I do with people, is scheduling the technician. That's really the only yes or no question I ask. And so right before I schedule the technician, which is kind of like your, hey, this is going to happen, like we're doing this, I want to hit all their hot buttons again. I know what they like about the alarm. So in my recap, I'll say, yeah. And like I said, we're doing that panel up on the wall. We'll do the 3 doors. So if your kids ever walk out the door, it'll say front door open, back door open. We're doing the smoke detector for your dogs, just in case there ever is a fire, you're not losing them, or obviously your house as well. And then the doorbell camera, which you can talk through without actually having to open your phone. Like I'll just kind of hit a little recap of all of it. And like I told you, the only thing you're paying for once, it's the $99 activation fee, and it's just the $75 a month stays the same. Okay. And then from there, I do it the same every time, which it's important to note. There's also kind of a preface to qualification. So kind of right before this whole process, when I drop price and I'm on this page the first time, I'll tell people, it's always, most people think it's actually way funnier than it is. But earlier in the process, right before I qualify, I've dropped price, and I'll set myself up to be able to install for the same day, because it is extremely important that you push to same day your installs, because you'll have a much better pull through rate, more of your customers will stick, and also your customers are going to be happy. They'll have it up on the wall, they'll have the cameras up, they'll be able to see them, they'll be a lot more excited about it that evening and the next day if they actually have it, versus if they're like, oh yeah, that guy came by yesterday and the tech's going to come today, but kind of all that excitement and emotion is gone. And so sometimes, people that would have been really happy with their alarm if they got it installed the same day, sometimes people will fall through the next day. And so we push very hard to same day our installs. It's extremely important. And so after I've dropped price, I'll always say, okay, the only catch with all of this, because there's always something, right? And people are always waiting for it. And it's funny, everybody's like, yeah, what is it? I'm like, it's the $1,000 installation fee. No, I'm just kidding. And I actually had a lady on my blitz who, she said, okay. And she'd had a really bad experience with another company. I was like, no, that's you're not supposed to say okay. It's a joke. And she was like, whatever I got to do to get a good one. So I charged her a $300 activation fee. It was great. But most of the time, it's like, especially old people on a fixed income, they're like, oh, phew. Oh, but I'll say, yeah, no, usually it's $100 to get the alarm installed. But where we already have technicians in our neighborhood, it saves us a ton of time and money if we can just keep them busy going from home to home, versus if they go from, your house here in Eagle Mountain to Lehigh to, American Fork and back. If they can just keep running home to home, it saves us a ton of time and money. And then I'll kind of go on to the qualification. And so when I get to this point, they've already kind of had it in their brain, like, hey, be flexible with the tech. I'll say, so you did your summary. Hey, it's $74.99 a month. Like I said, the only catch, waiving that $100 install fee, it makes it a lot easier for me if I can put it on their next available technician. And as I'm saying this, I'm grabbing my phone out of my pocket, pulling it out, and I'll say, is it okay if I check and see when he can be here? And by then I have my phone and I'm looking at it like I'm texting the office. And 99 times out of 100, if I've gotten to this point in the sale, most people they say yes. And so then I text in the pronto. I already have a pretty good idea of when the next available technician is, because you can keep a check on your pronto. You can see when the last jobs were scheduled. If it's it's 9:30 right now, let's say it's late in the summertime, like, hey, we know it. I know a tech's been on a job for an hour. They'll be free in 15 minutes. You can wait for the office to respond and talk to them for a second, or I'll text the office, and then I'll say, hey, great news. You can't even get an Amazon package this fast. Steven's actually finishing up a job for Tony, your neighbor. You know him with the golden doodle. Yeah, he's going to actually be done here in about 15, 20 minutes. And so if we can just send them on over here, it makes it a lot easier for us. Can't even get an Amazon package that fast. And then I'll give him a high five, which seems really cheesy, but there's something about, you know, I pass around high fives left and right on the doors, and I feel like it gets people to open up with you a lot more. And most people are kind of excited about the fact that, like, hey, I can get my technician right now and get my alarm installed here and now. There are a couple things that we'll do if it is later in the evening in the summertime. Before as I say, hey, is it okay if I check and see when he can be here or when our next available is? They say, yeah. Well, I'm kind of waiting. I'll ask him, hey, it's 8:30 at night, 9 o'clock, it's getting dark. Maybe it was an appointment I set. I'll just ask him, hey, are you more of a morning person or a night owl? And it's just the best when they're like, oh, I'm a night owl. I go to bed at like 2 a.m. You're like, perfect. And 1 minute later, you're like, yeah, he's on a job, but he'll be here at 10:30. He gets paid by the job. So he has to fit his workday in when people are home. He's happy to do it. Takes about an hour, 20 minutes. He'll knock it out, do a great job. Is it okay if we just send him tonight? Okay, that's perfect. If they say, hey, I'm a morning person, I'm a trucker, I'm up at 5, I go to bed at 8:30 at night, I'm already up past my bedtime, you already know that you're going to kind of have to, preface it a little bit harder or push for the same day install, or know that, like, hey, there's a chance it might not work because we can't always same day all of them.
If they say, oh, I'm a morning person, I've one thing I'll try is like, yeah, like I said, that $100 install fee, just because they're already here, it helps us a ton. Is it worth $100 to skip an hour's sleep to you? And I've had people like, yes, I'll skip an hour's sleep to save $100. So I think just kind of like push for the same day, because it's, yeah, I will do anything that I can to not schedule out, whether that's waiving an activation fee, doing a second camera, paying their first month. Like, I will do whatever it takes to not schedule it out, because I just know, like, you schedule out and who knows, you're just leaving your money in the street. So, but when scheduling the tech, it's very, very important that, like, because like Derek said, this is the hardest soft close that or the hardest close that you're ever gonna ask. You don't want to say, oh, can we just install it today? That's the catch, because people don't want to feel like, oh my goodness, you have to do it today. Otherwise, like, people don't like to feel like they got baited into it, because sometimes if the way that you phrase it will make them feel like, oh, hey, let's just get it done today. You have to do this. And they don't like being pushed into a corner. So up until this point, like Derek said, you've prefaced way, way earlier that if they're flexible, the tech, you'll waive that. But I've never said in my process, like, he'll install it today, we have to do it today. You're not saying those things until, hey, is it okay? Very important. Is it okay if I check and see when he can be here or when he's free? Yeah, they're gonna say, yeah, you can check.
The cute old ladies are going to grab their calendar and go,
oh,
I have
every
a
time it
doctor's
kills me.
appointment on Thursday,
They're
but
like, the
anytime
second
aside from there.
Wednesday. Yeah, it's always funny, old people like, the second Wednesday, or I'm on a cruise in 3 weeks, and I'm like, yeah, this is going down tonight. But
And kind
but
of on the other extreme of that side, Sean, who can be very technical, sometimes people will be like, am I doing this today? And Sean will say, oh, no, not at all. We're booked out. Like, we couldn't even do it today if we wanted to. And like, we're 2, 3, 4 days out on these installs. And then when he goes to schedule, he goes, oh, I actually had somebody reschedule and pay the $100. We have a tech who will actually be free here in about an hour. Makes it way easier for us if that works for you. And so it's important not to say, hey, the only catch is we're doing this today, but just, hey, next available. And then, oh, hey, look at that. They can be here shortly.
yeah, Austin makes fun of me for this, but when I scheduled the tech, I'm like, is it okay if I check and see when you can be here? And they're like, okay, yeah. And I look down on my phone, and I already kind of know the schedule, so I'm like, oh, well, I've got good news and bad news. Which do you want to hear first? And they'll be like, oh, usually they'll say the bad news. And I'll look at them and be like, the good news is there's no bad news. The good news is You don't have to, but it helps me a ton and it saves you $100. He's actually wrapping up another job a few streets over right now. Can he just swing on over and knock it out for you? It helps me a ton. It takes like an hour. Is that cool with you? Oh yeah, yeah. Wow, that's cool. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, you can't even get an Amazon package that fast. So I don't know. I like to play with their emotions a little bit throughout the sale with like the $1,000 install fee or good news, bad news, because it kind of keeps them on their toes and it keeps it, fun, and they like you. So, but it's very, very, very important to always, always, always schedule the tech before you get billing. I've had reps that'll call me like, "Oh, I lost them at billing." And they're like, "Did you schedule the tech?" And they're like, "No." I'm like, well, then you have to schedule before billing. And the reason why is, when do people pay for something? When they get it, when they're checking out. Like, I'm not whipping out my credit card in the middle of the store in an aisle. Like, I'm waiting until I get to checkout and then I get my card. So um I always schedule. They know they're getting it. Okay, he's gonna come on by, and now it's real. And now they're like, "Oh, we're getting this." Um, and then what it also does is it isolates any objection moving forward. So I know they're cool with getting it. They don't have any objections about the alarm. They don't have objections about really anything else, right? And then with billing, if they have issues with billing, I know it's actually their real objection is with billing, and they're not using billing as a cop out for, hey, we want to think about it, if that makes sense. So always schedule before you get billing. When I get billing, we'll talk about old people here in a second, but and how to preface for old people. But when I get billing, what you don't want to do is say, okay, and now billing, what's your card number? What's your bank number? Like, you don't want to just start hard closing billing. You want to preface it. So how I preface it, I'll say, yeah, and there's 3 steps left. 1, we set up your billing. 2, we do the DocuSign. So everything that I've told you, we're going to go through together on my iPad. You'll get a copy in your email. And then the welcome call, it's a 2-minute conversation with ADT. They're going to ask you a couple questions, basically make sure I punched in everything correctly. But as far as billing goes, so I'll kind of lay out, hey, this is what the next 10 minutes is going to look like. And I also feel like that helps them realize, okay, there's a phone call, there's paperwork, this is legit. And then I'll go into billing. So how I get billing, I'll say, yeah, we do monthly, quarterly, annual. Most people do monthly. Is that cool with you? Because I don't want them to sit there and be like, oh, what's annual? Let me pull out a calculator. So most people do monthly. Is that cool with you? Perfect. And then we do secure bill, where we bill your bank directly same day every single month. Who is it that you bank through? And they're either going to, hey, Chase, or they're going to say, oh, we don't, sometimes, rarely, they'll say, oh, can we do it on a card? I try to get the bank first because I feel like it's less likely to expire. It's less likely to go bad. Probably, I don't know, percentage wise, but I feel like it's more likely to stick getting their checking. But I use the word secure bill. I don't know what that means, but it sounds good. So hey, we do secure bill. We bill your bank directly, same day every single month. Who's it you bank through? Chase. Perfect. Chase, and then um and then with Chase, they just need your account and routing number. You don't have it memorized, do you? I always ask that question. You don't have it memorized, do you? And no, yeah, I could never, yeah. And let me go get it. And it's such an easy question for them to, hey, let me go get it, or let me pull it up on my phone. But yeah, just so we know where to bill it to. Do you know what's the routing number? You don't have it memorized, do you? If I'm going the credit card route, um, I'll say, yeah, the only catch with the card, they just don't want it to expire in the next 12 months. Do you know when your card expires? They're way more likely to go get their card and start giving you their billing instead of saying, okay, what's your card number? So I always soft close them into it with the expiration date, because then they get their card, they're pulling it out, they're looking at their expiration date, and then like, okay, it's in 28, so we're good. I'm like, okay, what's the month on there? Okay, 0428. And then what's the card number? And again, you're looking down, staring at your iPad, punching the card number. Also, a story. There's 2 blitzes ago, we were in Mississippi, and this dude, I got all the way to, and this is very rare that I ever get to billing, and I'm like, I don't know if they're gonna get it or not. But he wouldn't let me schedule the tech. He was kind of like, oh, I don't know when I want it done. I'm like, okay, and tried to push, and he just would not do it. And I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to just walk away. So I just kept soft closing. Hey, as far as billing goes, we either do secure bill, we bill your bank directly, or we can do it on a card. How do you pay most of your bills? On a card? Okay, perfect. The only catch is they just don't want it to expire in the next 12 months. You know, when your card expires, and he went and got his wallet, looked at the expiration date, and was like, oh, it expires this day or whatever. So I typed it in, and I was like, okay, what's the card number? And he was like, well, I'm not doing this at all. What? Yeah. So the point of this is I actually had to push him really, really, really hard every single step of the way. Um, and the fact that he went and got his card and went and got his billing just kind of shows you like, hey, the expiration date or who do you bank through, you don't have that memorized. That soft close way into billing, it's an easy transition to where this guy who wasn't even going to buy was still grabbing his credit card to tell me when it expired.
Yeah, the beautiful thing about it is you're asking for their bank information, you're asking for their card number without really actually asking for it. And so it's extremely non-invasive, although billing is not usually a big deal at that point anyways. The way I do billing is fairly similar, but when it's an older person, and I love selling old people. I think everybody needs to practice it and spend time in old people neighborhoods because they're fun sales and they're awesome. But sometimes older people, not really as often anymore. I think it's pretty mainstream paying your bills on basically auto pay. But occasionally you get that old cranky lady who's like, I send a check in the mail for everything. And so if they're over 60, I usually preface it pretty hard. So I've scheduled the technician, hey, high five, they'll be here in an hour. And then I'll say, okay. And it's not like that. We don't do manual billing anymore. Like back in the day, there's a couple reasons, first off, it's not secure like it used to be. You used to send a check in the mail and it was fine. You didn't worry about it. Now some hooligan gets a hold of it somehow, or your letter gets lost and somebody has your check. Now they can wreak havoc and make withdrawals from your bank account. They have access to your money. I was like, or another big reason, because for some people that's not enough. I said, or it's kind of a liability thing because this is your home, it's your security, it's your property, it's your pets, it's your life. Not that this would happen to you, but for example, if somebody went on a 3-month cruise, they went to visit family for a while and they just slipped their mind, they didn't send their check in the mail and their bill didn't get paid and we couldn't get a hold of them and they got canceled for non-pay. We just wouldn't want their house to burn down in a fire and they thought they had an alarm and we didn't send the fire department. Which again, not that would happen to you, but just because of that, it's a liability thing and it's more secure. We just do our billing right through the bank. Who do you bank through? Okay, perfect. Chase. Okay, and then do you have your account number memorized? Okay, perfect. Yeah, I can Google the routing. Did you open that bank account here in Mississippi? Okay, perfect. Because it kind of depends on the routing. I'll just Google that one if you can just find your account. If you have a check, you can snag it. And most people have a check unless they're like under 30, and then they'll just pull it up on their phone pretty much automatically. Um, and so that's how I'll get billing if they're older. If they're not, it's pretty much the same as TJ. Just hey, we don't do paper billing anymore. It's way more secure. We just do it through the bank. Who do you bank through? And then do you know your account number? And you punch it in from there.
Yeah, and I've even had guys call me and like, hey, they won't do it unless it's manual billing. And legit, the people that will fight you on it, like it makes sense. Like I'll say, yeah, and not, and I always say this, not that you would forget, because if you say, oh, we've had people forget, they're like, I never forget anything. I always pay my bill, whatever, right? They're gonna argue on that. So I'll preface it and say, I know you would never forget, okay? But we've had people go on a cruise and forget to pay their bill, and then someone broke in and we didn't call you, and it's just a huge liability issue. So they don't even let us do manual billing anymore. Like I said, just because it is protecting your home for police, fire, like it is your home. But it is the most secure way to do it, and then go get billing. So I knock on wood, I don't think I've ever done manual billing. And I think it's because of that. Just like any other objection, if you 8 Mile it, you beat them to it and preface it and explain why, then it takes all their ammunition. They can't say, oh, well, I want manual billing, because you just told them that we can't. So And then after billing, you'll click save. You'll swipe over. Every single one of these should say saved. Okay. If one of them doesn't say saved, you're gonna have to swipe back and go click save. Okay. From here, we'll do the DocuSign. Okay. So what I'll do, you'll click create. I just leave it on text message, as obviously isn't going to let me create anything, but you'll click create, you'll click OK, and then you have to wait a solid 5-ish seconds in order before you click send. But wait 5 seconds, click send. I'll say yeah, and then like I said, the DocuSign, it's going to go over everything that we've talked about, show you all the zeros, make sure I spelled everything correctly. It's going to send you a text really quick to your phone just to make sure that you're not a robot. You're not a robot, right? At least not most days. Ha ha ha. And then you'll send them the text, and then from there, in fact, let me pull up a copy of the DocuSign.
While you pull that up, TJ, do you care if I jump in?
Yeah, shoot.
One thing I like to do as well, guys, so you can text, you can have it do a phone call verification, or you can have it email it to the customer directly. Derek, do you always do the text, or you?
I always do the text. I don't send it to their phone unless I have to.
Yeah, so I 99% of the time, just because it skips a step, I just say, hey, is your email hooked to your phone right there? Okay, sweet. And I email them DocuSign, and then I never get the questions, do I get a copy of this? Where is it? Etc. And it's right on their phone. They pull it up. I take their phone and do it with them. So sorry, I'll have you guys go through it. But that is an option. I know a lot of first years don't know that there even is 3 options, but you can text it, get a phone call verification, but if you skip those, you can just email it to them directly.
The phone call is for usually for older people. If they put a landline down as their first number, they obviously can't get a text to it. What it does is it calls them. It has a code on your screen. You punch the code in the phone, and then you have the customer say their first and last name, and it allows you to push the DocuSign through on your iPad, so you can sign it on your iPad.
Yep. So yeah, there's a couple ways to do it. On the iPad, when you're going through it with them, or if it's pulled up in their email, this is a blank one, so it doesn't have everything on it. But this is something that you should memorize word for word, exactly how you're going to do it, A to Z. And you can practice with your manager, but there's no reason at all you should lose people on the DocuSign or on a contract. Okay. When I'm pulling up the DocuSign, again, I'm prefacing it. Hey, I'm sure you understand, not that you would do this, but we've had people in the past, like obviously we don't want you to go sell our cameras on eBay in 6 weeks. Okay. I know anything to make a buck. There's crazy people out there, or more likely than that, we just don't want 6 months to go by and you switch to our competitors right after we just paid to do your alarm, and then they use all of our stuff. Okay. So in the alarm industry, there's 3, 4, and 5 year agreements. We just do the shortest. It's 36 months that we ask you to pay, keeping it connected and just keeping that sign out there for advertising for us. But this right here, I just want to make sure this is all correct. And then you're jumping into the DocuSign. At that point, it's super, super rare to ever have any pushback there. If there is any pushback for me, it's like, oh, well, what if I move? Oh, good question. If it's after a year, like I said, we just move it for free. Before a year, after a year, we'll probably just leave the equipment here and give you new equipment at your new place. Or technically you could have it transferred into someone that moved into the house after you, but yeah, you do get a free move. Your first one's on us. Okay. So, but this right here, I just want to make sure this is right. And I'll zoom in, especially I have an iPad mini. So like I'm zooming in on everything. And I just think like, hey, you're hitting the bullet points and showing them everything they need to see. So this right here, we got your name, address, phone number, email. Does that all look correct? Perfect. Okay. I'm not clicking any signing thing yet. I'm not clicking on anything yet. I'm just going over all the information so that when they do sign, they know exactly, hey, this is everything I'm getting. So that's the only thing I do on the first page: name, address, phone number, email. Okay. This right here shows you're doing it monthly, not quarterly or annually, every single month. Okay. This down here, this shows the $99. And if I'm charging the activation fee of $99, I'll say, yeah, this is the $99 for that activation fee like we talked about earlier, okay? If I'm waiving that, I'll show them and I'll say, hey, the 99 is for the install. But just because he's already going to be here tonight, like I'm waiving that for you, and I'll show you that in 2 pages, okay? So on this page, I'll show them total monthly service charge, okay? $74.99, like I told you, right? Perfect. Insert dumb joke. New York customers only. You don't live in New York, right? Okay, perfect. This here shows all of your equipment, okay? Shows the doors, and again, I'm hitting their hot buttons again. Smoke detector, doorbell camera, the integration fee, all of that. And your cost, all zeros. Don't you like zeros? High five. Except when it's my paycheck. Ha ha ha. This down here, every single DocuSign will show a 99 under balance due and a 99 on less deposit. Doesn't matter what you're charging, doesn't matter if you're financing, it'll be different, but normal deal, it's always going to show balance due $99. So I'll show them this and just say, hey, it shows balance due 99. Like I said, that's just for the activation fee. If I'm waiving it, I'll say, yeah, it shows deposit of 99. It cancels that out. So you'll never see that come out on your end. That's totally waived on our end, okay? This down here, we do lifetime warranty and insurance plan. If anything ever breaks or stops working, we pay to fix it or replace it for free, okay? And like I said, that's included. Usually that's extra, but with this package, you're helping us. So we throw in all the bells and whistles that's included, okay? I'll scroll back up to the top. There's going to be a yellow box right here under familiarization period is rejected, initial here, okay? Technically, what the familiarization period means is on paper, it's, hey, they could use the alarm for a couple days without it dispatching to the police if it went off. We never ever do that. And at least as far as I know, the techs never do that. I don't ever explain that to people. I just say, hey, this right here, little yellow box, I'll click on it. It'll pull up a signature box. This just locks in your price so it never goes up on you. You can either draw your initials or it does one for you. And I'll click on the one that does it for them and I'll be like, does that look okay? And usually like, okay, that's great. And I'll have them push the confirm button or they'll say, oh, I'll just sign it. And it's just their initials, okay? There is a little, I don't think it's on this DocuSign, but there's a little bubble right here that'll say yes or no. Brad, maybe you can tell me what that is. I think that's like share Google, like, hey, if you have issues with your system, they can, like, it sends errors.
Yeah, just like the analytics of it.
I don't even have them. I don't explain that. I just click yes, and then boom, have them sign it. So, and then on the next page, there's going to be another one down here, and that's going to be their whole signature. So have them click that. I'll click that, and then from there, I'm going to scroll all the way down, and to notice of cancellation. So when I get down to notice of cancellation, I'll be like, okay, now this is the most important part. Okay, it's your notice of cancellation. It just says if you cancel tomorrow, I'm going to cry, and I'll like pause and like stare at them in the soul, and they're like, no, I'm just kidding. Okay. I'm one of 2 reps in the entire region. It's based off a quality score. I'm one of 2 reps in the whole region. I have a perfect score. Okay. And not that I'm worried about it, but if you ever have any problems, questions, anything, I'm going to shoot you a text. That way you have my number. Don't get me wrong. ADT is great. You can call them at 3 a.m. It's a real person who speaks perfect English, but just text me. Okay. I just want to make sure you're happy, taken care of. And then I'll boom, click that one. The next one, there'll be a second notice of cancellation, which I don't have on here. That is for if you live in California. I also don't explain that. I just click the little yellow box. The next page, and basically you just have to click the yellow boxes. The next page, it's going to be the alarm permit and registration. And basically what I'll say is, yeah, this page here doesn't apply to you. Some really big cities make you pay the city to have an alarm. You don't have to worry about that here, which is nice. And then I'll click that button. And then the very last page is a broadband writer. And hopefully by this point, if you're doing cameras, I'll always try to ask way earlier, like, hey, you have Wi-Fi here, right? Okay, the only thing that uses it is the camera so you can see it on your phone. Everything else is cellular. So, but on the very last page, it'll say broadband writer. This here is just saying that ADT is not responsible to pay your internet bill for our cameras to work, obviously. Boom, click the button. And then the top right-hand corner, there'll be a button that says finish. So, but this process should be very simple. You shouldn't be overcomplicating anything. You should just be showing them all the important parts, $75, 36 months, and clicking all the yellow boxes. Oh, Derek, you're muted.
Oh, my process on the DocuSign is a little bit simpler, but it's essentially the same thing. But after you do the DocuSign, I'll prep them for the welcome call. I basically say, hey, Mr. Customer, last thing we have left to do, we do a quick welcome call. I'm just going to call the office, put them on speakerphone. They're going to go over everything I explained to you, make sure I didn't promise you a free trip to Hawaii. And usually they're like, but you did. And I'll just say, hey, they're going to ask that you state your first and last name, Timothy Fowler. They'll ask if you're the homeowner here. Obviously you are, so say yes. Make sure your phone number and email's right. Hey, congrats, your activation's been cut in half. It's $99. Do you understand it's $74.99 for 36 months? Then they'll ask if you have an active alarm here, which you don't, so just say no. If they do, you want them to say yes. So they'll say, which you do, you have Vivint, so say yes. They'll ask you who your current provider is, Vivint, how long you've been with them. They'll make sure you understand that we're not affiliated with them. It's your job to cancel. And that's pretty much it. So you call the office, put it on speakerphone after you get the welcome call, prep to go. But basically, overall, kind of just in summary, this whole sales process, we're just going to kind of go over the order that we do it. And then TJ and I, we might both do it, but at least one of us will role play the process all the way through. Basically, I have my summary and then I drop my price. I have my pullback, which introduces the qualification, and then your credit check, the qualification page, your emergency contacts, additional information, kind of doing a quick summary again, hitting their hot buttons, scheduling the technician, getting billing, going over the DocuSign, and doing the welcome call. And this might to some people this might kind of seem a little bit boring and tedious, but it is extremely important that you learn not only the order in which you do that process, but also the things that you're supposed to say to introduce every little thing. Because like TJ has said, there's a very big difference between, hey, and then what's your phone number, sir? And hey, when the alarm goes off, let's say it's a fire, we're going to call you right away. Between the two of you, who's better at answering the phone? Those are completely different. Dan led a training a while ago, and he said that so much money has been made from the lines, when the alarm goes off, we're going to call you. Who do you want us to call first? And it's extremely true. So committing all of these steps and the way that we say things and talk to your managers. I like these calls because you kind of get to hear from everybody, but talk to your managers on how they go through the soft closing and commit it to memory. Really, commit to practicing those things. But I can, TJ, if you want to be the customer, I can,
Sure.
I'll just because this is recorded and people can go back and look at it later. I think I'm going to drop price super quick, just so you can kind of see how it intros, how I do how I preface the installation, and then how I get into the qualification. So I'll kind of start 1.5, maybe 2 steps before kind of what we trained on. So,
And real quick before you jump into that, just a quick thing. I think where guys lose people the most, it's in the transitions. And you'll see watching Derek, like the transitions between dropping price and the qualification, or qualification to emergency contacts, or that into the summary into scheduling the tech into billing. Like the transition between each phase of the sale is where most guys lose people. So if you can master the, hey, I know exactly where I'm going from here, not like, oh, where am I going? What do I say next? Oh, did I mention it has to be today? If you have your process dialed in and like, hey, this is where I'm going next, you'll lose a lot less people in the transition of like the pausing and the like giving them a spot to say, oh yeah, well, let's think about it. So I would just say make sure you're working on your transitions. Like from dropping price, when I say, oh yeah, like I said, only bill it's ever different, it's the $99 activation fee just because it's cellular. But before I make any false promises, ADT is a little picky. So boom, I'm writing it into qualifying the address. I'm not like, oh, does that sound good? I'm not hesitating. I'm not pausing. And so just make sure that you'll listen back to this and practice the transition between the steps, because I think that's probably the most important part. So
The way that Sean has put it is, a lot of rookies, they're looking for hopefully a yes, but they're looking for the customer to tell them yes or no. I don't want either. I just want to soft close them all the way through, shake their hand, take a selfie to send to the group chat, and be on my way. And so, but I clicked on a completely random house, and the person's name was Timothy, so it was meant to be.
perfect.
But here, let me just.
And I'll just give you a little bit of pushback there in the middle, just so they can kind of hear kind of how you overcome, one or two things when you're in that phase of the sale.
Which, by the way, you'll see a little pushback in how I deal with it. Last week on Monday, one of my recruits, Cam, who's on here, saw me sell two, and the first one was completely textbook, no pushback, easy peasy, A to Z. And the second one was one of the harder deals I've done in a very long time. And the process was the same. There was just a lot more, one-liners, using some logic here and there. There's more things inserted throughout that sale, which you'll learn throughout the summer and before kind of diving into how to deal with those. But the process ultimately in its bones is the same. So, but kind of in recap, we're doing the panel up on the wall. It's the only thing that puts a small hole. It's like hanging a picture, but it'll look real nice. They'll drop the wire down in through the wall, do a super good job. We're doing sensors on both the front door, the back door, the smoke detector for your dog. Make sure if there is a fire, he makes it out. And then we're doing the doorbell camera in the front. Like I said, a lot of times these newer alarms, they're cellular, so they're 130, 150 bucks a month. Kind of depends on who you go through. We want to make it as easy as we can because you're helping us out being an advertising home. Obviously we're a business. We can't do this for everybody. Because you have the sign out front, people see your cameras. We'll have 3 or 4 neighbors call up in the next year. They'll pay a bunch of money. Like I kind of showed you that $1,300 for the equipment. That's why we're willing to cover that for you and cover the upfront costs. The only thing you're paying for is keeping it connected, which we drop down. You can see here, it's the $74.99 after your taxes and everything, and that stays the same. Okay, it's not like the cable company where there's some promo price, you're all happy, and it expires in 6 months, then it doubles. That's locked in. Okay, the only catch with all of this, because there's always something, right? People are always waiting for it. It's just the $1,000 installation fee.
Oh
no, I'm just kidding. No, people are always waiting for something crazy. Usually it's $100, but we have technicians in the neighborhood and in this area. If we can just keep them busy rolling from house to house, it saves us a ton of time and money. So if you can be kind of flexible with our technician schedule, we'll waive that for you too. Okay. The only thing you pay for one time, it's a $199 activation fee just because there's a cell chip in there. It's just like when you buy a new phone. But before I make any false promises, just where we are covering all the upfront costs, ADT requires that I qualify the address. Basically, it verifies that you live here, you're the homeowner, and you didn't have ADT like 10 years ago at this house and you never ever paid for it. Because then they wouldn't be super excited about sponsoring round 2. But you said TJ, right? What's the T for? Is it Timothy?
Timothy. That's a good guess. Or Tyrone Jamal, actually.
I tried. And then what's your last name, sir?
Fowler.
Okay. And then this is still 422 Oriole Circle, right? 37043?
Yep.
Okay. When the alarm goes off, we're going to call you right away. What's the best phone number to reach you at? 337?
465.
Okay.
3664.
Okay. And there's a lot of TJs. What's your birthday, Timothy?
10/08/97.
10/08/97. And then just because there are so many Timothys out there, we want to make sure that we have the right one, the Mr. TJ. What's the last 4 of your social, sir?
3466.
Okay. And then all this does, the qualification, it's a super soft utility credit check, just like when you get internet. Doesn't hurt your credit score at all, right? You go buy a house or a car tomorrow, a really nice lawnmower, it doesn't even pop up if the lender does a hard inquiry. They just want to make sure that you understand that's what we're doing. We're doing the soft check. I'm not just doing it for you. So you don't have to sign if you just initial here. Boom, it's initialed.
Perfect.
I've got good news and bad news for you. Which one do you want to hear first?
Always the bad news first.
The good news is there is no bad news. The good news is everything came back great. This is a really good spot for us. We can do this here. But if the alarm goes off, what'll happen, let's say it is a fire, we're calling you, you don't answer. We'll start to dispatch the fire department right away. We're calling them, so there's no delay. But it's required we put down an emergency contact. If the alarm's going off for whatever reason, we can't get a hold of you. Who's the next best person to try to call?
Definitely my wife,
Okay. Well, and then what's your wife's name, sir?
Rachel.
Rachel, and then Fowler as well.
Yep.
And then is hers number 337 as well?
Yep.
Okay.
644-9306.
And then you don't have to if you don't want to. I don't necessarily recommend it. But if you and your wife don't answer the phone, is there anyone else you want us to try to call, or just leave it at you?
Probably my brother Billy.
Okay.
He lives pretty close.
Billy Fowler as well.
Yeah.
What's his phone number?
Let me go get my phone.
Yeah, those phones spoil you. They make it too easy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 665-3506.
Perfect. And then this is the hardest part of the whole thing, or the easiest. It kind of depends on you. The last thing we'd ever want to happen, let's say there's a break-in, whether you're home or not, okay, and we call you. We just don't want them to get a hold of your phone somehow and say, yep, no bad guy here, we're good. And so, you're probably not going to use this because don't say this to old people. You're probably not going to use this because you're not 85 and have a flip phone. But if you ever want to answer, or you probably just turn it off on your phone before you even walk in the door on the app. But you can always answer our phone call, talk to a real person, say, hey, I'm okay. We just want to make sure it's actually you and you're actually okay. So we require a verbal password, no numbers, not super duper long, just a word. What's a good word you think you could remember?
I don't know. And I guess before we get too far, like I don't know if we're gonna do this. Like we probably want to talk about it, think about it.
Yeah, for sure.
But,
And that's the nice part about my job.
We have to do this today.
No, you don't have to do this today at all. Like I kind of said earlier, it's not that you have to do this now. It's just that it's more of a first come, first serve kind of thing. We're doing 100 of these here in Clarksville, and we've only got about 12 or 13 to go. And so, there's quite a few of us out here. I manage the group that does this. And so it's not that you have to do it now. It's just more that it's a first come, first serve kind of thing. And if you notice as you drive down the street and if you go on a walk through your neighborhood, most if most of your neighbors have an alarm now or are getting one now that we've been through here, and it's not because they got their door kicked in, some of them, sure, but it's because it keeps it a safe neighborhood. The nice part about my job is if you're ever going to do this, which you probably are eventually at some point anyways, you know, doing it this way where we're coming to you and we're covering all the upfront costs, we're paying to get it done, it makes it a lot easier. But you could either do, like I said, it's kind of the hardest part. You could either do an old pet's name, you could do your favorite fruit, a place you visited, just a word you think you'd remember.
Let's do bananas.
Bananas. Mine's pineapple, so it's close. And then I should have shown you this earlier, but on your phone, you can see, and I'll kind of dive in on my phone and show them the app and the cameras and everything there, which is, again, just building more value and kind of hitting their hot buttons. But on your phone, I should have shown you this earlier. You can see the cameras, show all the features. The technician, they're going to set that up for you. You don't have to do it yourself. You can actually probably download the app here in a second. It's Google Home and ADT Control, but this is the username to get logged in. What's a good email for you, TJ?
tjordanfowler@yahoo.com.
Okay, perfect. And then, like I kind of was showing you earlier, on here we're doing the panel up on the wall, all the doors, doorbell camera, the smoke detector. Only thing you're paying for once, it's that $199 activation fee, and then it's just the $74.99 a month stays the same. It helps me out a ton waiving that $100 install fee if I can just put it on the next available technician. Is it okay if I check and see when they can be here?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, sweet. And let's text the office real quick. You guys have any plans for the rest of your day?
Nope, just hanging out.
Nice. That's fun. And then good news, Steven, he's wrapping up an install for me down the road. I don't know if you know Megan at all. She's the one with the big old Rottweiler in the backyard, barks and annoys everybody. Nice lady, but he's wrapping up over there. He's probably got 30, 45 minutes to go or so. And then he can just swing by and knock it out. The whole thing takes about hour 15, hour 30. Can't even get an Amazon package that fast. High five. And so he'll be here in just a minute. And then we don't do paper billing anymore. It's not secure like it used to be. We just bill through the bank directly. It's a lot safer. Who do you bank through?
Chase.
Chase. Sweet. And you open that account here in Mississippi or somewhere else?
It was in Mississippi, yeah.
Okay, I can Google the routing. Do you know the account number?
Oh, gosh, no. Yeah,
Not
no.
one of
I'm not
I
those
don't.
people.
It's always the 80-year-old ladies that always have it memorized. I'm always impressed. But yeah, if you just grab it on a check of your phone, I'll Google the routing. And then, punch in the routing, punch in the account. And then now we just have a couple things left to do. We do a welcome call with the office. They're going to go over everything, make sure I explained it all to you, make sure I didn't promise you a free trip to Hawaii or anything like that. And then most companies in the alarm industry, they do agreements of 3, 4, or 5 years. We do the shortest. Okay, not that you would do this, but the last thing we'd want is to pay all this money and cover all this to put an alarm in somebody's home, and then they go sell the cameras up on eBay a week later. Okay, so where we did pay to get everything done, we do ask that you keep it for 3 years, but it is nice because it guarantees your price stays the same the whole time. And obviously we want to serve you for a lot longer than that. So it's not like it goes up later either. Okay. I should have done this while I was talking, but what this is going to do, it's going to send you a text with a 6-digit code to your phone. If you give me that code, I'll punch it in my iPad. We'll do it together, and it sends a copy to your email. Okay. But do you have any questions for me at all?
No, I think we're good.
That's the right answer. And then what was that code?
33642.
And then I don't think we need to role play the rest, but you go through the DocuSign, you do the welcome call, and you're done.
Yeah, and like I said, you'll notice like it's just seamless. Like there's no pause, hesitation. Derek knows exactly where he's going. Like even when there was a little bit of pushback, but he knows exactly what to say. And you should practice your objections, which we'll do that in another training. But like, oh yeah, and like I just don't know. It's a safe neighborhood. You should know exactly what you're gonna say and your rebuttal to that. And then it's really important that after Derek was like, yeah, obviously it's a great neighborhood, but and then had a couple lines, he just jumped right back into it. There was no like, there was no pause or hesitate of his flow. And so that momentum is super important, and you want to protect that momentum through your sale to where you're not going way off topic and having pauses and like, where am I going? And so protecting that momentum as much as you can just helps you not only save time but also just helps them get through the whole process without as many road bumps. So,
but does anybody have any questions on soft closing, that process, anything we talked about? Perfect. Again, I just encourage you guys to memorize the lines that, the top vets say when they soft close, because it might seem small, but there's a huge difference between just saying, hey, we want to make sure it's you and the alarm goes off, what's a good verbal password, and painting that picture and, kind of using that imagery to get them to see themselves using it. There's a very big difference in the two ways you can ask for things. So just encourage you guys all to memorize that, and yeah, it'll help you a ton.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for hopping on. Brad, any closing words?
I don't know if Brad does, but this is Dan. I do. For all the rookies, we've got a big blitz going down there in Texas right now. So for all the recruiters and the team leads and managers and stuff, I'll get Patrick to get this in the Dropbox so we can get it on the YouTube channel. But it would be this was a ton. There's a ton of gold nuggets in this that are just little things that we're missing. I got several phone calls today, which is a great sign from different rookies of, hey, I messed this sale up. Where do you think I went wrong? Things like that. And it's just those little one-liners of getting the billing and becoming credible with knowing the area codes or, knowing even the banks in the area. That down there in Beaumont, what are the main banks in Beaumont? Like, has anyone Googled that? Just tiny little things like that can create credibility. So tons of little nuggets in this. So we got to get this up on the YouTube channel. So as soon as we do, we'll send out the link so we can start watching it and replaying it, because tons of important information in this. So fabulous job.
Appreciate it, Dan. It really is the little things that make a big difference. And also, like, something you'll realize is, the Bradys, the Shawns, the people that, TJ, that sell really well, everything they do on the door is for a reason. There's no kind of just winging it and kind of doing what they feel like. Everything they do is calculated and it's done for a reason. And it's why they're able to, push such a good amount of people through. But it was, thanks for jumping on, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Okay. See ya.
Like,